I guess either because I was a Sankirtan leader, I had distributed more books than anybody, they were going to let me bathe Srila Prabhupada's feet. And I remember Prabhupada's feet were actually swollen. And I felt like, Prabhupada, I could feel that Prabhupada had gone through so many. It wasn't like he was touring around the world enjoying. Prabhupada was giving his life so that we would have life in Krishna consciousness. And I also remember while I was pouring it, I was just in complete ecstasy, and somebody behind me goes, hurry up, hurry up. And I got all nervous, and I hurried up. And after that, anytime anybody said anything, I just totally was oblivious to whatever they were saying. It was like, this will only happen once, twice, 3 times in your life that you could get this close to Prabhupada and just get this mercy and forget what anybody said. I remember one time I made the sandalwood paste up, and I was ready to put it on Prabhupada, and Tamal Krishna came and he took it from me and he put the sandalwood paste on Prabhupada. And I was thinking, who does he think he is? I made that up. So I remember the next day, it was it just became transcendental rascals to get Prabhupada's mercy. I had my big chadar on, and I had the sandalwood paste and flour underneath, and I was just standing there, and I saw Tamal, and he looked all over. He was looking all over for the sandalwood paste, and finally he gave up, and he offered Prabhupada a flower, and he paid us obeisances. Boom! My chadar went off. I had the sandalwood paste, and I put it on Prabhupada. And I remember Prabhupada was smiling. I think he knew what I did. And I was really attached to that chadar because when we were in India with Srila Prabhupada, we went to Haridas Thakur's Bhajan Kutir or something. And while we were there, somebody came, I think it was Guru Das, came out and said, Prabhupada needs something to sit on. Prabhupada needs something to sit on. That chadar came off, and it was like, here. And then later they gave it back to me, and I was thinking, this is the chadar Prabhupada sat on. And I can't remember exactly what Prabhupada said in that. Oh, actually, I do remember. Prabhupada gave the lecture in another language, in Indian language. And we had no clue as to what he was saying. But I remember sitting right at Prabhupada's feet and looking at Prabhupada's feet and looking up at Prabhupada talk and thinking, well, I'm getting purified because I'm listening, it's going in and I'm being purified even though I don't understand anything Prabhupada is saying. And that was also very sweet, just to be. Because usually you didn't get that close in India to Prabhupada. That time I guess I was able to get close and get some personal service in there. But in Hawaii it was very intimate. You could get close, and you could pull tricks like that, hide the sandalwood paste from Tamal Krishna, put it on yourself.
One story which shows Prabhupada's extreme tolerance. In 1972 in New Vrindavan, on Vyas Puja Day, we had the Vyas Puja ceremony in a special pavilion set up there. Were you there in 1972? And they'd cooked a very large cake for Srila Prabhupada and a great feast. So what happened is that somehow the word got around falsely that the cake and even the feast was Mahaprasadam that Prabhupada had tasted it. And of course there was a type of devotional feeding frenzy. Naturally all the devotees were mad after getting some of this Mahaprasadam on Prabhupada's Vyas Puja Day. So I drove Prabhupada back in my little car. That's another funny story. I was just a new sannyasi, and the GBCs and managers had made arrangements who would drive Prabhupada in this big car. And so actually right after the Vyas Puja ceremony, somehow or other, Prabhupada's car didn't show up there to take him back to his house, which was a couple of miles up through the hills. And so somehow or other Krishna inspired me, this is my chance, sort of like Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, that this was my chance. So I had my car nearby, I was a new sannyasi, and I had a little yellow Volkswagen Bug. It was a little yellow Volkswagen, so I raced to my car and turned the ignition and came around right in front of the stage where Prabhupada was, and I ran out, opened the door and said, Srila Prabhupada, we can go now. So anyway, one of the, I won't mention the name, but one of the big leaders was absolutely infuriated by this. But Prabhupada did get in the car. And off we went. And it was actually, thinking back on it, it was, I can't imagine a more sublime experience. On Prabhupada's Vyas Puja Day, driving him alone through the forests, the hills like that. And so we drove a few miles up to Prabhupada's house, and then and actually as we pulled in, that leader had somehow gotten up there and he was sort of making faces and sort of cursing me so that Prabhupada couldn't see it, but I thought, well, I got the mercy. And Prabhupada didn't have to wait. So anyway, so then we went into Prabhupada's house, and he said, "Where's the lunch?" And then he was informed that mistakenly the devotees had thought it was already Mahaprasadam. There was actually, on Prabhupada's birthday, Vyas Puja Day, there was no prasadam for lunch. And so Prabhupada's servant immediately said, "Well, I'll go cook again." And so he began to cook. But Prabhupada was totally undisturbed, not angry at all. And not to say that he would never become angry. He was soft as a rose and hard as a thunderbolt, like Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself. But in that particular occasion, he was actually very peaceful and happy. And then we just talked for a while until finally the lunch was cooked.
I was a Sankirtan leader, so that meant I kept the book room. It was supposed to be kept in order, and I'm a very sloppy person. So I knew where the books were, but as far as like really having it straightened out and organized, and there are empty boxes around and like those yellow things that get wrapped around them. And so it was kind of messy. And then one day we heard Prabhupada's doing an inspection of the temple, and I was like, oh no. And I ran to the book room. I didn't even go on the first part of the inspection because I was like, oh no. So I got in there and I'm like stacking books up and busting boxes up and throwing stuff in the trash. And then I started sweeping, so it was all clean. And I just got done sweeping when Prabhupada got to the door, and he was looking at me. And I didn't know. I don't even think I paid my obeisances. I may or may not have. All I remember was Prabhupada was looking at me, and I was frozen. And then I heard Prabhupada asking, "What is this?" And Shri Kiri, "Oh, this is the book room, Srila Prabhupada." And then Prabhupada looked at me. And this time it was eye contact, and I could understand that Prabhupada knew that I had just finished cleaning that book room, and that regularly it was a mess, and those were his books, and that his book room should not be a mess. And after that, I pretty much firmly resolved that the book room would always be clean and it would always be straightened out, so that if Prabhupada was going on a walk, I'd be all right. I could actually take the walk with him and not have to run to the book room and be like, oh no.
This incident takes place in Boston at the airport in 1969. And Bhagavan is there, Kirtanananda is there, Brahmananda is there. Everyone has come from all these different centers. And Brahmananda is instructing us, now everybody, you have to behave in a certain way. Previously, you jump over chairs at the airport, it's not good. We have to have some kind of protocol of an etiquette, how we handle ourselves in public. This is PR. So everybody's behaving themselves very nicely. And then after a long wait, we see Srila Prabhupada's bead bag up above the customs, some kind of customs wall. We can see it. Srila Prabhupada's. And when Kirtanananda saw this bead bag going like this, he lost it. With his danda, he goes flying and jumping. And all of us went flying and jumping. I'm sorry, but that's all we could do. And then Srila Prabhupada came out and he was beaming. And we were all just bowing down as he was coming. And then there was just like a whole sea of us bowing down. First there was a path of us bowing down, and then there was a whole sea of us bowing down. And meanwhile, there are all these newspaper reporters and with their cameras and so on and so forth, and they're looking at all this sea of Americans in 1969 bowing down to this Indian sannyasi. Srila Prabhupada notes it. And he said, so, the spiritual master is to be worshipped as God. Can't hear a pin drop in that part of the airport. But if the spiritual master thinks that he is God, then he is dog. And then he had him. He had him.